How you doing, folks? You're watching Onward with Onrie, and I'm your host, Onrie Compen. Today, I got an outstanding guest in the house. This is a man that I honestly consider to be on the same level with me in terms of his showmanship and his sales ability. He's the hardest working man in comics. Everybody, please join me in welcoming Victor Dandridge. Victor, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so very much. I am humbled. I'm honored to be here. Dude, thank you.
No, absolutely. Do me a favor. Yeah. Tell us who you are while I let everybody on the internet know that we're doing this right now.
Of course.
Tell us all who you are. Give it,
the rundown. Give them the rundown.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I am Victor Dandridge Jr., the hardest working man in comics. I am a self-publishing comic creator born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. If you look over my shoulders, you can see two of my most prolific books. We've got The Samaritan. We've got The Trouble with Love. We also have Wonder Care Presents The Kinderguardians, Origins Unknown, and Old Crazy and the 40 Ounces of Death. I'm also the purveyor of U CRE-8 COMICS, which is a whole program designed to help you build your own comics from start to finish. And we work with students predominantly, helping kids use comic books in the classroom to build readership, interest in learning, their acumen in terms of making comics, all that fun stuff. If you haven't seen me at a Comic-Con, that's crazy. For a long time, I was Mr. Wizard World, and you can see me on stage with many celebs. I've run Artist Alley with Wizard World. I've been all over the place. So when it comes to comics, Comic-Cons, I'm the guy that probably knows everybody, or in some way, shape, or form, somebody knows me. So it's a pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Absolutely, man. All right. So let's talk about that, because when you and I first met, we were neighbors at Phoenix Comic-Con 2014. And
wow, where did the time go?
Dude,
where did it go?
Dude, I can't believe it. It's ridiculous. We both looked a little different then, too.
A little bit. I was a little slimmer,
I was way fatter, I'll tell you that. I was like,
I was going to say, you lost a lot of weight. I'm not going to lie. I was like,
those drugs, dude.
We've mirrored.
It's all good, brother. You've been on the road so much and doing so many things. But yes. Again, let's go back to 2014 for a minute, because that's when we first met.
Right.
And the one thing it took maybe about 10 minutes after the floor opened for me to realize, like, this is my dream neighbor. This is the guy I want to be next to at every fucking show.
Dude, thank you.
And the reason why is because you were out there pushing and slinging and doing your thing too. And we were selling two completely different products, or books, right? Yes, not even books. You were selling 8-bit.
I was using.
sticker.
So I was doing 8-bit pixel art designs of popular characters. I had a game that I did called the 8-bit Challenge, and you were pushing books. And you're absolutely right. Like the energy level that you had, I was like, oh, I gotta step with this guy, because you're out there, you're doing it. And that's the thing is when I really got into doing conventions, especially when I started to branch out and not do conventions with my friends, that was the big deal for me. It was a matter of, I have to be as extroverted as possible, because I don't have the luxury of just kind of lounging with my crew and us just having a good time. I have to work. And seeing you do it, I was like, let's go. Like, I'm ready. You're doing it. And I'm like, well, then let's do it together. And
fuck yeah. And
dude, it was beautiful.
And I knew watching you just on your backdrop, because your backdrop was pretty much all the characters, and you were inviting people to play games and engaging them. And you had such a way of just bringing people over. Now, as we both know, Eastern Shin is not for kids. So, anytime I see a kid, that's all you, baby. You go for it.
Of course.
And that's fine. That's a choice I personally made. And it's a choice I think every creator has to make. But I think you take on a much heavier burden when you are selling everything and trying to get it honed in on you somehow. And you do, and you figured it out. But then and I learned a lot from just watching you there. And then after that, we just both did all these conventions. We run into each other from time to time. And again, like you were saying, as you introduced yourself, here's what happens next. Victor's now on all these panels. He's, moderating for celebrities. He is hanging out with celebrities. He's doing all these kinds of things. And it makes sense, because you have that personality. You have that kind of like, I want to hang out with Victor. He's the cool guy at the house. So how did you I could never do that. I'd be so nervous.
No. You could definitely do it. You have the acumen, the personality to definitely make that happen. I mean, it's what you're doing right now. If you think about it, there's a chance that one of the guys that you have talked to on your show is going to be the next big ... Jack,
absolutely. Yeah.
And you've already set the stage of, I'm going to talk to this person no matter who they are already, who they might be later. So you could definitely be that person without question.
I appreciate you saying that.
No, and I mean it. I absolutely mean it.
But was it kind of like when you got to that point where it's like, here, because I've seen pictures with you for with you've moderated for Stan Lee.
Yep.
You've moderated for all these comic book legends, all these celebrities. Okay, how does that feel? Like when you get up there, was it a very like, was it easy for you to just own this?
In a weird way, I built up to it. And I think that's the key. You definitely don't want to just jump into the deepest of waters because that can be overwhelming really easily. I was the guy that everything really kind of started, and I'll give mad credit to them, Wizard World Comic Con, for embracing me, bringing me on, and really kind of helping me hone that skill and that talent that they saw in me. And I was the guy, and I think this is why I think you could definitely do this, who didn't say no. When they needed something, if they wanted something, I was the guy that was like, yep. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. Can you get up and do a news press thing? Yep. You have to be at the show and you have to be, okay, I'm there. Like, let's go. And doing that, right? It's one of those situations where, ironically, they were doing me more of a favor than I think they realized, because yes, I'm there to promote the show, but I'm talking about myself. I'm showing my work. I'm showing my table. I'm getting FaceTime that ordinarily I wouldn't get, and I'm a guy that's never worked for Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse. I'm a self-publisher. So any of that, FaceTime was huge to me. And it grew to me taking over hosting the drink and draw that they offered. I got to do the costume contest, and things like that just kind of built up where I was the guy that never said no. When they needed something last minute, pre-game, whatever, Victor's going to do it, and it was an understanding. Granted, they would ask me, which is always, appreciated. But, my mindset was get out there and get, be seen. That's my job. And it got to the point where in 2016, right before Tulsa, Oklahoma, they asked me if I would moderate a celebrity. And I'm like, sure. Okay, I'll do that. And I'm thinking it's going to be something, low end, not huge. And they're like, yeah, here's Sebastian Stan. And I'm like, wait, what? Are you kidding me right now? Okay. And so my very first panel that I moderated, packed room. I mean, we're coming straight off of Civil War, right?
Yeah, he's still hot, and he's only going to get hotter now.
Exactly,
and with the show that's coming out. Yeah.
So Super and Fuego, that's the first person that I'm working with, and he and I hit it off really well. I developed what I call my style of moderating, which is to keep things very conversational, but very active in terms of like what's the audience asking, and what is it that I think is appropriate for them to ask the celeb. A lot of times people can get a little tricky, and it's funny because I was just talking about this. My second show that I was moderating, I was with Evan Peters. It's 2016. It's an election year. And someone actually asked who he was going to vote for. And I jumped in real quick and was like, yo, we're not talking about that. Like,
that was smart. That was so fucking smart, because you know what? And this is something I always do. And I totally respect you for doing this. This is why I hold you up on such a high level, brother. Because because of the fact that you don't know who your customers are. We can think whatever we want about our politics.
Right.
And if we make a decision, we could say, well, we're not going to sell books to a certain demographic, but then all of a sudden you're going to see your sales go down. Exactly. But on top of that, you not only are protecting your reputation up there when you're moderating, you're protecting the reputation of the celebrity.
Exactly.
And when you stepped in like that, you were totally shielding him.
Right.
And he didn't have to answer that question, which was the right course of action.
Thank you. And that's the thing is my job is to facilitate the experience. It's not necessarily to interview them, but to make things easy. So if there is something that's a little difficult, I jump in the way, just like you did. I asked them, are there things that you don't want to talk about? If there are, then it's my job to jump in on that sword and say, no, we're not talking about that. And ironically, this was something I hadn't even thought of that we would have to talk about or try to, dissuade anyone from mentioning. But when it came up, I was like, split decision.
Exactly. And when those things happen, see, like you gotta really be on your shit when you're up on that level. You really and that's awesome. Did he thank you afterwards, or was
he sent word through security that he was so appreciative that I did that so that he didn't have to answer the question, because he was really afraid of, one, he didn't want to say an answer because no matter what answer you gave, someone was going to get mad. And if he said, no, I don't want to answer the question, then it becomes even worse. And so the fact that he didn't have to deal with that at all, and it killed the, any tension about it, he was like, that was awesome. So yeah, it was a wonderful moment, and I really appreciated his appreciation of it. But that's the way it all went down, was like, being aware, being in the moment, and recognizing what the situation was, where it negatively could have gone, and why that's not worth it. So
I think honestly it can be said, that you are the face of comic conventions.
Thank you.
And I say this only because of the fact that out of every single kind of there's many correspondents out there, but they handle it from so many different angles. I mean, you are just you're like out there, and you got the energy, you got the excitement, and it's not just about your work, it's about everything, which is why Marvel and DC, they don't need to hire you, but you're pushing their stuff anyway.
I am, because it's part of the whole system, the whole community, as I call it, the geekosphere, or the geekosystem, however you want to look at it. We all rely on each other, and in weird sort of ways. If you go back to like reading The Fourth World by Jack Kirby, and you see how the New Gods on New Genesis, they have this whole lifestyle that's so opulent and so amazing, but on the surface level, they're the bugs. And the bugs are just as important as the New Gods. Whether the New Gods acknowledge it or not, they really are. And some of the most heroic characters, like Forager, are what they deem are lower beings, lesser beings. But they literally can be the difference between victory and success. And I think that's one of those stories that matters. Whether you look at somebody and it's a little kid that is just now finding comics for the first time, whether it's a creator whose talent level might not be as high as someone else's, still never knock them down. You never know how important they're going to be one day. And
absolutely,
that's the thing. Encourage them, make them step that level up, because they feel empowered to do it. That's our job.
Yes, absolutely. And I've been that reminds me of I've been watching The Last Dance, the documentary about the Bulls. Yeah. Okay, I know you're on it too.
Of course.
And the funny thing about it is like, when there's still a lot I have to see, but I've been really kind of looking at Jordan and, his upcomings, and he didn't make his basketball team one year, and the varsity basketball team in his sophomore year of high school. And he was really let down about it. And then what did he do? He kept working at it. You would have never thought at the time when he got rejected that he would ever become the greatest basketball player of all time.
He would never be Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
He never thought that.
Yep. And look at, and you got to look at these creators the same exact way, that there are many of them that, are just getting their foot in the door. They're going to fuck. Everybody's first project sucks. My first project is a disaster.
Wait. Do I still have mine over here? Oh, here it is.
I burned all mine, Victor. I burned them all.
Very first one. And I have this book, and I hate this book. And I use that hate to encourage me to create better, be better than this guy. That's it. Yeah. That's really my goal. Be better than this guy. And as long as I can say that I am, then I'm doing something right.
Yeah. But you've gone outside of, and that's another thing too, because I always feel like I'm not doing enough, because I look at, the amount, I look at all of our contemporaries, all the writers, artists out there, right? And they're busting stuff out left and right. They are knocking shit out the park. And they got like 7 comics in the works, and they got all this stuff going on. And I got 1 comic series. And I write maybe 20% of the time, but the rest of the time it's like there's all the business aspects, there's everything else is in play. And from what I know about you, my friend, you also have 5 children, and you're doing all this other stuff plus traveling. How do you manage all this, and how do you keep yourself kind of, you know, on point with making sure that you come through the way you need to for every aspect of, you know, life?
Well, I mean, I have 5 ways that I have to figure that out, and it's Gabe, Victor Matthew, Julian, Harold, and Juno. My kids are the biggest reason why I go as hard as I do, because if I don't, they don't get, you know, and it's not even just a matter of like the financial take care. They don't get to see somebody pursuing their dreams. They don't get to see someone who is stepping outside of the norm of practical living and saying you can accomplish things because you want to accomplish them. You know, that's one of the things that I think is very important for not just my children, but everyone to see, is that, yes, there are going to be some people that do the 9 to 5 and they work it and they take care of things and it's fantastic. But then there has to be those people that step outside of that, that create the things that those 9 to 5 people get to enjoy and indulge in order to relax and recoup and stuff like that. And I push for my children to recognize that you can be either one of those. You know, it's important that you have some understanding of self so that you can decide for yourself which one of those things you're going to be, and then find a partner that you can be yourself with. That's the important thing. So, you know, Adri, my lady, is back in her office right now doing the 9 to 5, you know, job, while I'm doing this. I'm talking about, you know, my creations. I'm traveling across the country to do a Comic-Con. All these things function together in order to keep me motivated to do what I do. And that's the importance of it. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, if we don't all have that understanding, we can get, you know, overcome with the difficulties, the severities, the strange ups and downs that happen. I could tell you that for a long time, come November, I would get into a funk because there weren't shows.
Dude, same here. Oh my God, same shit.
Oh
my God, it sucks. Yeah, I'm so irritable right now. Right? I'm very irritable. Dude, it's like that. That's why I don't feel like I'm doing enough, because when I'm on the shows, it's like you don't have fucking time. You know, you're going one show to another, and it's like now that's taken out, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to start creating more now. It's like,
I mean, and that's the goal. The thing for me was, in addition to the stuff that I was doing, I was using my travel time to create. So I was the guy that I would write on my phone. I would, you know, anywhere that I had an idea, what do I need to do to execute said idea?
Oh, of course. Yeah. You got to keep, you come up with a great idea, write it down, because you can forget it.
Immediately.
Especially yes, absolutely.
And what I did was I set up a system for myself that allowed for me to be as productive as possible, despite the fact that I was traveling or had interviews to do or this, that, and the other. So it allowed for me to actually build while doing. And, you know, it came to a certain point, like you said, so when we met in 2014, I was doing the 8-bit stuff. Literally, that was the last year of me doing 8-bits. I had been doing them for like 4 years at that point. And while I loved it and it was an immediate moneymaker, my relationship with Wizard World had grown to a point where we had established an actual partnership that eliminated most of the overhead that I had.
Okay, so how did that relationship start?
And like I said, it was being the guy that didn't say no, you know. So I started working with them.
Here's why I'm asking. Here's why I'm asking you to be more specific for me. Sure. This is a personal question. Every goddamn thing that happens on the show is personal. Damn it.
No, that's smart.
Yeah, but like you said, it's breaking the ice, right? But you know, here's my experience at comic conventions. I go to one show, I pack up, I go to the next show, I pack up, I go to the next show. Not really interacting with many of the, you know, show floor managers and stuff like that, unless it's regarding, you know, a bill that I need to pay or something like that, you know. And it's not that we have bad relationships. I have but they don't really see me as somebody that they would come up to and be like, hey, do you want to be a part of a panel? Or, hey, do you want to moderate a panel?
That's the trick. That's the trick right there. So what I did was I went to them. My first rule when it came to getting into the comic convention system, the market, is to never ask what it is that they're going to do for me. My question is, what can I do for you? What do you need? Tell me what you need, and either I'll find it, I'll build it, I'll make it, I'll go get it, whatever. Tell me what you need. So my relationship with Wizard World actually like started when we were they come to Columbus, and I was actually booked for a different show, and the show didn't quite work out as well as I needed it to. So rather than do the Saturday, Sunday of the other show, I did the Saturday at the other show, and then I came because it was out of city. So I came back and I was like, let me find someone that I can talk to from the Wizard World thing and possibly get a table for tomorrow. What do I got to pay to get a table for tomorrow? And funny enough, I had gone that Thursday before to the convention center and actually just started asking like who was there so I could get some names. And I heard a couple names, remembered them. And so when I came back that Saturday night, I'm dropping names. I'm looking for this person. I'm looking for this person. I'm looking for this person. And finally I got in touch with someone and they were like, okay, if you really want a table, show up tomorrow morning and I'll give you one. And I was like, okay, cool. I do. First thing in the morning, they walk me back to the table and we start talking. And my lady actually brings up how I have this program, the U CRE-8 line, that's perfect for kids. And they're like, really? Well, we just hired a programming director. We need kid-friendly content. Sunday is supposed to be our kids' day, but we don't actually have kid-friendly content set up. And I'm like, I can do that. And 2013 began our first partnership, and it was a trade. I do panels, they give me a table. And it was like, cool, that's already a huge step forward as a creative, because I mean, as a premiere show, Wizard World was expensive. We're talking $300 at the low side. For some of their bigger shows, it's more. It's close to $500 for a table. So I'm already walking in $300 to the richer, and then I still do what I do. In that time span of 2013 through 2014, again, anytime they needed something, I was like, yes. I was also the guy that I aimed to find out who was in control of what at the company. If there was a marketing person, if there was a PR person, programming person, I want to know their name. And again, it's because that's how I'm going to be able to showcase what I can do, because I know who to go to. I know who to ask. I know who to ask for.
And it's also building your network, just exactly. Overall. It's knowing people who can help you get to that next step.
Right. So, after doing that for 2 years, they became comfortable enough where they offered me basically an expenses paid Comic-Con tour. I would do any panels that they wanted. I would host whatever costume contest they wanted. I would do press for them whenever they wanted. The drink and draw whenever they wanted. I would do all of that. What they offered was I'd get a table, flight, and hotel covered. When you eliminate that level of overhead,
expensive, you got no overhead. All you got is your shipping. Yeah, all you have is your shipping, which is a couple $100. Yep.
So then at that point, what I could do is I can transition and go, okay, I always wanted to be a comic book, creator. Like it was about books. Yeah. Vantage Inhouse was always about books. I was always making books. It was just that the 8-bits were so popular that they overshadowed them. And no one knew that I had comics. So it all kind of worked out as this beautiful, happy accident. 2015, I say, I'm not doing 8-bits anymore. Now that I have this opportunity, no overhead, I'm doing strictly books all the time. And at that point, I had 4 titles. So imagine being this guy that all of a sudden I'm on the scene and people recognize me, but now I've got 4 brand new comic titles that you've never heard of. So now it looks like, and we're talking multiple issues of each one. By 2015, The Samaritan was all done. That's the 7-issue run. We've got at least 3 books in Origins Unknown. The Kindergartens have started, and I've got The Trouble with Love out. So I've got different, readership groups, all different kinds of product to hit people with, boom, on the scene. And I still don't have the same stress of needing to make back tables, of needing to make back,
right. That's always my first goal at a show, right? Is I have to do that. Yeah, I got to make that. So Fridays I always allocate to, okay, got to make table.
Right.
So that Saturday I can get on the Saturday and Sunday are my earning days.
Exactly.
And I keep thinking, I'm looking at everything you're telling me, and I'm like, I can't. So do you have enough time to work the floor?
So it becomes difficult. The trick is this, and I had to learn this.
Yes. I'm very curious. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Like when we think of the numbers game of being at a show, a lot of times we don't do it correctly. We look at the full scale of the floor and we say there's so many people here, and I know I'm going to get a percentage of those people. So I got to be here because the more people that pass me, the higher the percentage. Not exactly true. The trick is this: aim for doing panels. Number one, the most valuable thing to a convention is actually programming, because it's the one thing that they don't have to shell out a lot for, that they can get the most out of. That's a secret that nobody knows. A lot of people are like, oh, it's the celebs. The thing is that while celebs bring in a lot of people, celebs cost a lot. That's difficult. But if you were to say go to Bill Shatner, when he does speaking events, you're talking $80 a ticket just to get in for an hour. Now, your typical Comic-Con, you're talking $80. That's 3 days. So already, if you can fill that 3-day space with content, that's huge. If you can make one of those things the same as what would be an $80 expense for 1 hour, you're creating huge content pieces. The problem is programming is difficult to fill. You got to have good content. You got to have really good presenters. So it's not just the content is good. The person that's presenting it has to be good. And you have to find people that are interested in it. So if you can get those 3 things together, you've got a solid platform. So with Wizard World, their panels typically ran about 45 minutes. Most places run an hour. It's an average between the two. I looked at it like this. I can stay on the floor for an hour, and I can try to nab however many people might come in front of my table in that hour. Or I host a panel that I know is going to be engaging. I know it's going to bring people in, and maybe there's 20 to 40 people in that panel. I've got 20 to 40 people just listening to me for an hour. No competition. I'm not selling against anyone else. I'm making them like me.
And you would probably, if you look at the numbers, like the actual numbers of what happens within that hour,
right?
You know, and how many rejections you got to get through just to get to that one sale.
Exactly.
It makes up for it. So
yes.
Whatever time you lose on the floor, you make up for by being off the floor. And since you have those connections, I guarantee you someone's manning your table while you're gone, aren't they?
Actually, I never did that. I never did that. I was the guy that what I did was I said, I'm going to sacrifice my presence on the floor to do the panel. And what it builds is exclusivity. So if you think about it, the things that we can't get readily are the things that we want the most. So there have been shows where I had so many panels back to back to back that my table would be open for hours on end. So when people would finally come through and catch me at my table, I would get really quick sales, like en masse, because people were afraid that I wouldn't be back. They saw me at this one panel and they liked it. They saw me at this other thing and they liked it. And I was never at my table. So then it became this thing of, oh, he's there. Okay, get this, because they weren't sure if I was going to be able to come back. They saw me constantly working. It wasn't just that I was gone. They knew, oh, he's working with this celebrity, or he's doing this panel, he's doing this thing. So it built my clout. It built my celebrity up, as well as the exclusivity, because people then had to get it when they could. And again, I had an uninterrupted flow, 45 minutes at a time, however many people. I get them to like me. I mentioned that, I have a table. You get a nice percentage. I mean, even if it's just 10% of the room, that's still a good portion.
You're going to still get that anyway, because you're not going to sell every single person in the room. But the fact is, so what's an example of the type of panel that you would be holding that would engage people? Because I've gone to panels before, and I got to tell you too, I've been to a panel that you moderated before in Wizard World Chicago 2015, and I made a friend out of it. Which was kind of cool. I probably wouldn't have met him otherwise. Daniel June Kim, who runs Pop Mythology. Yeah,
love Daniel. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. But like the one thing I always feel is whenever I go to panels that they're never. Most of the people already in there have either already bought it, my book, or I've pitched them already. But I do see what you're saying in the sense that the panel itself needs to be engaging to the point where it justifies you leaving. So what kind of key words do you use to kind of like put out the proper bait, so to speak, to fill that room?
That's a great question, by the way. Really what it is what are the things that will bring in the most people that I can talk about that could have a reference back to what I'm doing? So diversity panels, I'll talk about those. Obviously, as a Black creator, I'll seemingly have something to say. Do I have Black comics? Yes. Do I have non-Black comics? Yes. So my perspective becomes something that, due to my perspective and my personality in those environments, I say something that stands out. You know, I'm the guy that says representation is a very tricky thing. There's a scale of representation, in my opinion. Do I have to see a character that looks like me in order for me to identify with them? No. So maybe when you say that I need to have a character that looks like me, I'm going to give you pushback, and I'm going to say that there are characters that we should see on a universal level, and those are the things that I'm trying to create. Will I have things that do look and fit a certain demographic? Absolutely. But the goal is that it can reach more people. Immediately, there's in a diversity panel, I've gotten more people on my side with that sentiment than anything else, because there are people that will go to a panel because they disagree. Now, when I bring up this point, you have nothing to disagree with. So now you're more so on my side than the person that's so staunchly, you know, you can't do this, you can't do that because you're not of this or you're not of that.
And most likely the likelihood of a bunch of people coming together for that is not likely. It's kind of funny. I was thinking of this, that made me think of a Simpsons episode where Lisa got jealous of this other girl who she considered a rival, and she was much smarter than her. And she had a dream that she was second best at everything, and and she was in a band that had all the second best band players in the world, and then everybody came there and started booing them, and then she woke up from her dream and she's like, "Wait, why would everybody come just to boo us?" You know,
right? Like, it's silly.
Yeah,
same thing.
Yeah.
When you have opinion pieces, because the thing that I try to tell everybody, especially us writers, is the thing that we're selling is not our product first; it's us. We need people to like us before they like our product. Unlike artists, and this is not a dig at them, but the truth is nobody has to know who you are to like your work. They don't care. They like the work. And I see it. I want that thing. It is irrelevant to me that you did it. Maybe if I like it enough, it becomes relevant. But the first thing that matters to me is, do I like that thing? And that's it. So for writers, we have to sell us first. And then when we do that, we actually have to get you to buy something twice to be successful. The first time is for you to actually fork over cash. The second time is when you spend time actually reading it. That's the thing that we actually need in order to grow, because you could buy it and you buy the first book and then you never open it up. So you never come back. That's not helpful. You never come back. You never tell anyone else to get it. None of that is helpful. If I can get you to like it enough to not only put down cash money, but to sit down and read it, now we've got something.
And by doing panels, it gives you something to talk about too. Because one of the concerns I have too with Yisun Shin is that our books take a long time to produce.
Right.
And as I've been thinking about, like, you know, everything given what's going on, I'm even more committed to the fact that I'm focused on just one title. And because I can put everything into it, absolutely everything into it. And I enjoy that. It's not like I have this desire to go and I don't want to work at Marvel and DC right now. Right. If they came to me and said, "Hey, we'll pay you a lot of money to work on something," that's a different story.
Of course.
You know, but I feel like I learn more, I gain more by building on what I started, my property.
Right.
So kind of transitioning that over to a question for you, you know, it's like, I see how important it is for me to focus on what is important to me on, you know, just like as my property goes. But I also see the significance of doing these panels, because this gives you an opportunity to diversify, like what you're saying. And now I can start sharing other things with other people and, you know, those experiences. But sometimes I find that panels are kind of difficult when you have, you know, because you got some guys that really, really want to talk.
Right.
And then you got guys who will cut you off. And then you got all kinds of shit like that. And have you ever been in those situations? And
yes.
How do you manage yourself in those situations?
The goal is to remember that your job is to have fun. That's the key. It is easy to take some of that stuff personally. I was on a panel last year at San Diego, and there was a prominent subject matter, and there was a prominent figure on the panel, and they had a tendency to cut off other people, and it became a talking point. Some people got mad. The trick is to never get mad for yourself, because if you do, you are not selling yourself correctly. you know, and that's part of the trick. You want to make sure that, you know, when anybody leaves that, they look at you with the highest regard, you know. It takes practice though. You know, it's all about how you want to present yourself as a professional in the business. You know, you recognize that you're basically always on.
You know, and that's kind of been my approach to it. So when I do panels, I remember I was invited, I think the last panel I did was 3 years ago at Comic-Con in Omaha.
Okay.
And was it Omaha? Yeah, Oklahoma. Sorry. It was one of the two.
Got you.
Here I was on this panel and I realized, you know what? I think the best thing to do for me is not to wait for my chance to speak, but to just shut the fuck up and let everybody else talk.
Yep.
And just sit there and, you know, pay attention to the conversation and learn from it, because eventually I will get to talk, and then I can say something that, you know, might be kind of a better segue to make the conversation more engaged. You know,
what you just did was the exclusivity that I was experiencing by not being at my table. When everyone else is talking and you're not, everyone's going to notice the fact that you're not saying anything. So they're going to be really interested.
Really?
In whatever it is that you
I would think the opposite. I would think like, why would this guy's, what the fuck?
No. It's the absolute, because they're going to want to be like, because especially if you're cool about it, if you're just sitting there like, okay, everybody's going to be like, well, what does this guy know that he's not even, you know, especially, I mean, because we can't necessarily deny our impressions of things. And sometimes that's the best part. I can't tell you how many times I've been on a Marvel versus DC panel and somebody says something that I object to. And while I don't cut them off, I will play with the audience on my reaction. So like, you know, I pull a Ace Ventura one time where somebody said something, I can't remember what it was, but I'm grabbing my chair. Like it's the only thing stopping me from interrupting. And people are cracking up laughing. So that when it's my turn, everybody wants to know what it is that I have to say, because I'm playing up this moment.
You use gestures.
Right. And it's a playful thing. I'm not, you know, technically being rude to the person, because they'll look at me and they'll laugh, because even the person that's saying is like, oh, he's got something that he wants to say about what I just said. And they'll laugh about it. So, you know, everybody creates this environment of entertainment. And I think that's the thing. While you are definitely trying to engage, be entertaining. Be the thing that somebody else wants to come back later and be more entertained by, whether that's conversation or reading your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know, honestly, I have to say, man, and this is me speaking pro to pro here. Yeah. I definitely think I'm going to try and engage much more in panels, just to see what the difference is. You know, even if it's at a traveling show. Yeah. You know, just to see what the difference is. Assuming we'll get to go back to any shows anytime soon. So I asked you this before, and I'm going to ask you again, so we can talk about it. You understand the convention scene, you understand the model. When do you think we're going to start to see some of these bigger shows return?
Honestly, 2021 at the earliest, and I think that it's not just in the actual safety of people, it's going to be in the mental safety of people. Right now there's a lot of stuff that's opening back up, and we are definitely in a wait and see as to what the effects are going to be of that reopening. If the virus comes back in mass and it's stronger than ever, that's going to hurt. It's definitely going to hurt. And people are going to withdraw in a way. I hate to say it, but people are definitely going to be like, I told you so. We shouldn't have done this and that. And that's going to be a thing. But the biggest thing is that it's going to force people to be more afraid of those general group interactions. And
which is what you don't want, because we're both in the same boat right now, where our businesses are basically put on pause. I mean, we can find ways to supplement that by going out there and getting some freelance work, or finding other ways to engage, you know, or being creative and actually putting out content. So, you know, but other than that, let's just agree on something, regardless of where we stand on this about opening or closing. We both want shit back open. Our business, our livelihoods depend on it.
It really does. And what's interesting to me is what I'm looking at is not just a question of whether or not we will reopen, but whether or not things will be the same if it does reopen. Because what we're seeing now, which is really interesting to me, there have been a ton of online comic cons, and they've been successful. I haven't actually heard of one that was bad. So in that regard, what do we have to do now? Like, do we have to go to conventions in the same way that we used to? Is that the only way that we can engage audiences? When we have platforms like what you're using right now, could it potentially replace the typical norm of a convention? You've got your books up right now. If there's anybody in my circle that's in my feed that has never read your book, they should see it right now because we're interacting. And that's one of the things that I think is very different and unique. When I'm at a show, I'm selling my stuff. I don't really have the opportunity to help you sell your stuff, but this way we do. And so when you can tag team stuff that seems, not like-minded, but has the same opportunity of growth and consideration, that's huge. Right now we're having this conversation so that literally anybody that has not bought either one of our stuff could try it out and neither one of us lose. But it didn't cost us any extra. We're not having to leave our homes. We're literally in the comfort of where we are. So in that way, is that going to change how conventions work?
I think it could be a supplement, which is, and I think that's the right way to look at it. I mean, the way I liken it is this: Jim Salicrup, and as a dear friend of mine, he's going to be on the show in a week.
Love Jim.
Jim's a great guy. Jim and David Anthony Kraft, my co-writer on Yushin, were having a conversation about me.
Nice.
And they're like, so Jim says, Onrie's going to figure it out. He doesn't need, he's already sold all these books. He can continue to sell them. He'll figure out another way to do it. Now, Jim doesn't know that Dak told me that, Jim said this.
Right.
But, it's kind of like one of those things, like the way I like to see myself and the way I think you probably see yourself too. We're a fucking rock band.
Oh, yeah.
Rock bands need to be in rooms. We need to engage our audience.
Right.
They need to see us. They need to they need to touch our products. They need to touch us sometimes, like hugs, handshaking, all that jazz, right?
It's part of it.
Yeah. So that's definitely, that's definitely going to come back at some point because that just like, rock bands are going to be continuing to tour and sports teams are going to be playing, eventually all this stuff will come back. But I also think that you're right, that there will be something gained from it too, because like you said, we don't get a chance to promote each other. Like, and I'm starting to come around to the idea that like, I've also had these I've had experiences that have made me kind of more secluded from certain groups of people after conventions. It's like, all right, I've been talking about my shit all day. I'm done fucking working. I just want to hang out with people I want to hang out with. I don't want to talk shop. I don't want to learn. I don't want to pick your brain right now. I want to fucking eat, and then I want to go to my room and I want to
talk about what you're watching right now. Like,
like let's have a conversation. Now, when I'm on, I'm on. So that totally makes sense. But I think it's important to be on for as long as possible, especially when you're traveling.
Of course.
Now, how do you balance that with family life? I mean, you come back and again, you got 5 kids. You obviously know all their names, which is good. Sometimes I forget my kids' names.
That's why I practice all the time.
I only got 2 of them. So.
No, we find ways to engage, to do things together. It's amazing the different things that you can do with kids that sometimes you forget that you're allowed to do that. The other day, like this is no joke, my daughters and I, the 3-year-old and the 11-year-old, go outside and I got some cans of silly string and we just attacked each other for no good reason, and it was one of those things that it was absolutely hilarious. I literally ruined a sweatshirt, didn't care because I had fun with my daughters, just doing something that as a kid I would have loved to do, and that's one of the things is sometimes we forget, things like the Disney Plus app. We throw on movies. We do sing-alongs with the movies. I get to show them stuff that I loved growing up and we can talk about it. They get to show me stuff that they found that they love. My youngest, Juno, she's into Starbeam, Miraculous, all these different shows I'm learning about because she's now gotten interest. And what's funny is that her interest in a weird sort of way mirrors the things that I like. So between PJ Masks, all these different things, they have superheroes. All of them have superheroes. And it makes it a very easy conversation for us to get into it. My oldest, Gabe, is into anime. He loves manga. That's a branch into comic books, so we can have stuff that we can talk about. There's a lot of times where it seems very easy for us to disconnect from our kids and not know how to talk to them, find the things that they're interested in and find an interest in it. and that works. Literally, Gabe and his mom were planted in the living room watching her play Final Fantasy, because she got to share her experience of playing the original Final Fantasy VII, and now this experience of playing it now, and then them having conversations about it. We just find different ways. It's just a matter of saying, like, as playful as I am and creative as I am with the books that I do, be just as creative with my interactions with the kids. Just keep that stuff open, all the time.
I kind of pulled something similar to you with the silly string. So on my birthday, it was really nice outside.
Right.
And my son was being like a little jackass. And he sprayed me with the hose a little bit. So I got the hose from him. And he was like, "Dad, could you spray me?" And I put the jet stream on, and I just went straight for his
there you go.
Just like, totally drenched him. And I didn't even feel bad about it. I was kind of like, did you ever see that Captain Planet thing where they got Don Cheadle to come in there and he turned everybody into a tree? That's how I was. I was just fucking like, fuck everything, fuck everybody. Yes, that's right. That's right.
I mean, that happens. But
then my wife came home, and then she's like, "What happened to Max?" I'm like,
"What?
Yeah, what are you talking about?" I was gonna say, if you ask any more questions, I'm gonna spray you next.
No, my response would have been, "Max who?"
Yeah, Max who? What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about.
I do that all the time. But yeah, it's little things that you can take part in. In fact, I got to give a shout out. My daughter loves Hamilton. Like, she's 11, loves Hamilton, sings it all the time, helped get me into it. And John Krasinski does that. Some Good News.
I saw that post. Yeah.
On the second episode, he had, Lin-Manuel Miranda and the whole cast sing to a young girl named Aubrey. And I take my daughter and her reaction to that. And they literally included it in this finale episode. They had a little snippet of my daughter's reaction into it. And again, it's those things that you can do that still keeps things energized. Again, that's me taking interest in what she likes, promoting what she likes, because I had to share it on Twitter. And it was just because it was a part of the moment. I wasn't in it. It wasn't about me. It was celebrating my kid's passion on something that's creative, that's interesting, vibrant, historic, cultural, and putting that out there. So it never fails that when you do stuff like that and just create things earnestly, opportunities, interactions, they can come back in a bigger way. So that's the things that I try to promote, is just do things authentically and because they matter. Like, just recognize that stuff matters, and as long as you do it with that intention, there it is. And
going off of that, stuff matters. There's got to be stuff that matters to you, and then there's stuff that doesn't matter to you, because there's a whole ton of I think one of the biggest problems I have as a father personally is I have a really hard time getting into this Roblox and Minecraft bullshit. My kid is obsessed with it. He wants me to be a part of it so bad with him that I do it after he's nagged me constantly, and I feel horrible. I feel like a horrible father, because I'm being honest with him. I'm like, I don't get this shit. I'm not into it. We're playing this game called Bacon, and I'm running away from this guy, and I'd much rather be shooting shit up in Doom Eternal. It's like, I don't, I have a hard time getting on that. But what happens when, say, you're in a public situation, and a conversation about something that you really despise comes up? How do you tell everybody what you really thought about that, or do you just kind of find a way to,
I do. I mean, I've had panels like that where, I'll straight up talk about it. The Wonder Woman movie, I didn't like it. I didn't find it empowering to women. I thought it was falsely empowering. And get this. I was
you're kicked off the show now.
Yeah, like
you offended me.
I know. I'm sorry. No, I was on a panel. It was Ivy Doom Kitty. Oh God, who all was there? Ivy Doom Kitty. There was at least two other people there, but one of the major ones was Trina Robbins, the first female illustrator of Wonder Woman. And the whole panel was like how great this movie was. And I'm just sitting there quiet again, because I disagree. And finally it gets to me and they're like, did you like it? And I was like, no. And they're like, wait, what? And I'm like, no, I didn't like it. And I start to say why, but then I stop and I say, well, wait, do you want to know why I didn't like it?
That's smart. That is fucking smart.
Yeah. Do you want to know why I didn't like it? And do you recognize that me saying I didn't like it doesn't mean that you can't like it? Like I'm telling you what I had a problem with, not saying that you can't like it anyway, because there's plenty of things that I like that are bad. You know, I can recognize it's bad, but I loved it. That's okay. And getting that approval made it go a lot easier for people. And what made it so great was, like, even though she had just said some wonderful things about it, Miss Robbins totally agreed with what I was saying. She was like, you know, I actually thought about that too, but I was okay. And I'm like, that's cool.
And
like,
you know why? Because you broke the ice. You found a way so that everybody knew in advance. And that's instinct right there.
Yes. So that's the thing, you know, openly say, like, I didn't like it. My goal isn't to get you not to like it. I'll just explain what I didn't like.
Yeah, sure.
And boom, it's hands-free, you know, and you know, yeah, I've built multiple panels around that where we're talking about Wonder Woman and what I didn't like and storytelling wise and what I think it did do versus didn't do. And it never fails to have an actual interesting conversation that always ends up being this thing of saying, but that's not to say that you can't enjoy it. You know, just because I thought something was bad doesn't mean that it wasn't good to you, and doesn't mean that you don't still get the opportunity to like it. I would be the first guy to say that when it comes to storytelling, Endgame is terrible. It's a terribly written movie, but it's one of the greatest experiences of my film life. It is. We will
there's so many fucking plot holes in that movie, but you're not paying attention to it because of all the things that it's doing right. And it did a lot of things right. But you know, here's the way I look at it too. It's sort of like a giant size issue of the Avengers. Right. You know, both those movies were. And you know, and it became a polarized thing after that. And I think Marvel was already getting polarized after Captain Marvel came out, because people are like, and that was a movie that I enjoyed that everybody else hated. And I mean, I thought it was fun. I saw it twice, back to back.
Right.
You know, and I saw it by myself, and then I went and saw it with my son. Right. And you know, it was just a fun movie, but I didn't go into it thinking about the whole female empowerment thing. I just saw it for characters, movie, story. Right. Did I enjoy it?
I just want to see this thing. Let me see what it is.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's the other trick, is like recognizing that we as fans of a thing don't have to love everything within that umbrella. Like, that's okay. You know, I think that's the weird place that we're just now getting to, of understanding of just because you like comics doesn't mean you like every comic. So every comic book movie is not going to be your forte. It's not going to be your cup of tea. You might not even see it. That doesn't diminish your position or platform as a comic book fan in the slightest. There's just some things that you like, some things you don't. That's
Victor,
okay.
I got to say something to anybody watching this episode, because this is going to be out there forever. And once we go off, to anybody watching this episode, I just want to tell you, Victor Dandridge is a guy you want to know, because there are so many people in comics that keep it kind of exclusive to the fact that, you know, you're coming in as somebody who's new. Well, you got to prove yourself. There's that rookie mentality of you got to earn your way. And the main way to earn that is to get work for one of the big two, Marvel or DC. Until then, no one pays attention to you. No reviewers, nobody. I mean, there are reviewers, but no one at the higher echelon that you really want reviewing your shit.
Right.
This is a guy who is doing exactly what, you know, all of us are doing, coming in as a comic book creator, and not only doing that, but has found a very creative way to bring what he is doing to a much higher platform, so that he can get all those people who are into Marvel and DC and funnel them back to what he's doing with his creations, which we honestly haven't even scratched the tip of the surface. And I apologize. Let's go into that. Yeah. Because I'm asking you questions that I would be asking if we were hanging out at a bar. Of course. You know what I mean? But let's talk more about your work, because I think that's something that I want to know about too. I want to know what the Samaritan is. You know,
of course. Okay, so what's funny is, like, the publishing side of Vantage Inhouse started with the Samaritan. It was literally the first book that we came out with, and it's shout out to Red McKenzie. He's the artist on that one, and it's modeled after Roadhouse meets Unbreakable. So that's the character concept of what, you know, everything is built around. And it's a hooded hero moves into a crime-ridden neighborhood and starts cleaning it up. Very hands-on, very aggressive. But he doesn't have a costume, no code name. It's just a guy who has powers and just starts doing stuff to fix stuff. And it was just kind of this idea that I had in my head for a long time. In fact, this is so terrible. I can't believe I'm going to show this. The first iteration of it was supposed to be in the second issue of this very terrible book that I hold in my hands right here. There's actually an ad for it that I drew, and this is 2010 is when this actually came out. So
I don't see why you think that looks so bad.
Oh, I hate that. It's a whole thing. But Rin brought it to life. We kicked it out, and it was a fun storytelling venture. And to this day, what I will tell people, or we'll say specifically since 2016, if you like Luke Cage, check out The Samaritan. Literally the first 3 episodes of season 1 is essentially what my book is. And that became a talking point for a little while where people are like, well, did they steal it from me? I'm like, I don't know. What I can tell you is that if you like this show, buy my book.
Yeah, I remember you were very vocal about that when Luke Cage came out.
Yeah, and it was one of the things where I recognized the similarities, and I wouldn't say that they stole it. I feel like that would be entirely too self-grandizing, because I just described my book using 2 movies that I clearly used as inspiration. So what I will say is, rather than it doesn't have to be competition. If you like this show, buy my book, and you can read another iteration of this concept. That's all it really has to be. And it's really one of the reasons why I'm able to funnel, like you said, the mainstream work into interest into mine, because what I'm doing is I'm telling people, if you like this mainstream thing, check out this indie version that either has a similar theme, a similar concept, character archetype, but different execution. How I go about this story is different. To a degree, Smith from The Samaritan is a Black Superman. Now, if I find out in a conversation of things that you're into Superman and you want to see something like that, that's how I'm going to pitch it. If you're more into Punisher, that's how I'm going to pitch it. Smith is Punisher with powers. Those are things that I say. So we start off with The Samaritan. In the meantime, I was working on The Trouble with Love that Harold Edge brilliantly illustrated. And while he was illustrating that, I happened to have 3 short stories that I had been talking about for years and years and years that came out under the Origins Unknown umbrella. And Jacob Newell did the artwork for those. And each of the 3 of those were homages to DC Comics characters. So we had an homage to Superman, an homage to Wonder Woman, an homage to Green Lantern / Starman. And then you had The Trouble with Love come out in 2012. So through this time period, I'm producing different things. The Samaritan was more mature oriented. Origins Unknown was definitely for teens. And then The Trouble with Love is a little bit more young adult when that came out. Come 2014, I'm kicking butt with the U CRE-8 line, and I'm trying to get into schools. And the funniest thing in the world happens. I'm like, hey, I'm this comic book creator, and I want to teach your 3rd graders. And they're like, well, let's see some of your work. And I'm like, oh my God, no, nothing that I had was kid friendly, just like you were saying. And so
I don't ever get asked to come to schools ever.
Give it time.
Once they're all in college, then I'll get.
Well, I mean, hey, listen, college campuses.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And no, I did the tour in Korea.
Okay,
I went. Yeah, I went and I spoke in all the major universities in Korea, which was really cool. But I mean, it's not an ongoing thing. It's like I have to top. Remember how content is, right?
Of course.
We release one book and then it gets shoveled underneath the next stack of books that comes out the week after and the week after, and then eventually your stuff gets buried. It's up to me or us to constantly bring it back into people's faces.
Here's how. Okay, so here's the interesting thing I want to impart. I'm going to give you this one.
Yeah.
The trick is to not treat your work, especially us as indies. We should never treat our work as the monthly fare of the mainstream. You know what we should treat our work like? Albums.
Absolutely. These are fucking albums. Yes. Absolutely. And they take however long they come to take out.
Exactly.
Rolling Stone is not any less relevant today than it was when it first came out. Absolutely. Because that is a beautiful way of putting it. That is a fucking beautiful way of putting it.
But that's the thing. There's somebody that's going to get into Purple Rain for the first time next year.
Yeah. I have to be honest with you. I never was really into David Bowie, and then he died. Then he croaked, and
you're like, oh my god.
Yeah. Well, it's just that I never got around to it, but I started listening to his albums afterwards, and I'm like, this guy's pretty good. And there's a reason why he was a legend, and all that stuff.
But
Absolutely,
you always have the opportunity to start at the beginning, and the more that we keep trying to promote ourselves or attribute the mainstream orientation of things to what we do, that's built for us to lose. Don't play that game. Like, don't at all. Go in it and say, yo, what's your album taste? I've got this full collection. These are the singles of my album, and then we have the full album if you want the graphic novel. These are the reasons why, and this is to kind of go back to what you were saying before. Excuse me as I take a drink.
No, go ahead. And by the way, normally we end in an hour, but I'm so enthralled by everything you're saying that we'll go on a little bit longer.
Okay, cool.
Please.
So while you're absolutely right in terms of considering us like rock stars, rock bands, needing to be in places, I think the other trick that will happen is those people that have relied on the big arena style events and seeing how something could disrupt that. We're going to go for more smaller events, curated events even. And I put this out there because me and my crew have been doing this. So shout out to Mike Watson, Ren McKenzie, Danny Cooper.
And by the way, Mike Watson, that's the guy I wanted to reference this whole time. But yeah, keep going with your shout outs. I'm sorry.
So no, but like we're the four horsemen. And we've been doing stuff where for comic book movies since 2006, since Superman Returns came out, we have been like partnering with local movie theaters, and we set up in the lobby and do a makeshift Comic-Con. And we're not paying for table space. We're not paying for travel. And we're finding like-minded people that are showing up by the hundreds, by the thousands, interested in comic book material. And then here we are as local guys saying, we have some stuff too. And we're part of their premiere weekend experience. We've been doing that for what is that, 17 years? Or no, not 17, 14 years at this point. So there's nothing to stop more creators from doing that in their own home spaces. Rather than waiting for these big conventions, they're going to start building their own stuff. They're going to start building opportunities for themselves. Okay, so you in particular, if I were you, if I had that amazing book that you have,
tell me.
I'm backpacking. I'm going to local universities, and I'm saying, when it comes to English classes, I'm selling out of my backpack. When it comes to history classes, I'm selling out of my backpack. I'm going to them and saying, hey, what's the last graphic novel that you read? And if I don't read graphic novels, well, I want you to check this out. Boom, 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 boom. Sell to the professors. Sell to the bookstore. When we have this kind of situation happen where what we know and our norm is disrupted, we as creators are going
to be thinking of, we have to find new channels. So maybe Jim Salicrup was right.
I think he is right. I think he's literally correct about what you're going to do. Because again, these are those things where selling in certain platforms make us comfortable. And every few years, I try to make myself uncomfortable. So like I got very comfortable with selling the 8-bits. I did that for 4 years. I stopped and started selling books. Wholesale stop. It wasn't a transition. It was, nope, no more 8-bits, now strictly books. I think the next time that you see me, I'm going to not have books with me, and it's going to be strictly You Create Comics material, just to get myself into a different platform, sales, mindset. Do I still have that material? Absolutely. If I wanted to, I could bust out more 8-bits right now. But I'm just going to keep trying to do things that keep me on my toes creatively, even if that means selling in a place that I don't normally do. Why not go to the gas station and just kind of hover? There's that kid that's hey, you like hip hop? We get that all the time. I've never seen anybody do that with a book. Never. Why not? That's weird.
What's funny? Back in January, I went out to get gas and put air in my tires one night. Right. And as soon as I got to the gas station, and I started filling up the air in my tire, the pin fell out of the tire. Oh. And all the air came out.
Oh, no.
No. I was like, fuck. And it was cold as shit. It was like, because it's Chicago.
Yeah, I was Chicago. Chicago in January?
Yes. And I was in my pajamas. I didn't even have like a fucking hat.
Okay.
All right. because I thought I was just gonna go. Yeah, I was planning on going home, smoking a bowl, and fucking writing a new scene for you some shit. All right, so here I am. I gotta like put on a spare.
Right.
So I get everything out. I fucking jack up the car and everything, and I'm trying to get the tire off, but it's so fucking cold outside that the tire is not coming off, even though I've loosened all the nuts on there.
Of course.
And basically, I had no choice but to call for a service to tow my car. So guy tows my car, and I was very fortunate because my service center was only like 10 minutes from where that gas station was. So it was a free towing, and he was able to give me a lift back home. I went in at 9:00 p.m. and I didn't get home until 1:30.
Oh my God.
So anyway, the guy who was driving me was just really cool. And I was so frustrated with everything I was dealing with that I was talking to him, and he was in the Army. Okay. And he had recently been divorced. He had a kid, and his kid was really into comic books. And I told him what I did. And by the time he got back to my house, I didn't sell him the books. I gave him the books because he helped me out. And I was in an emotional state. Hey, this guy saved my ass. Take a fucking book.
Yeah, take it. I love you so much.
You know, and you appreciate those kinds of experiences. Yeah. You know, and I think it's if I always look at it as is the timing right, you know, because the one thing I've never wanted to be is the guy selling Streetwise subscriptions or the person who's telling you about the environment. I think that's a very different thing. And it's like we automatically are like, whoa, we don't want to be around that. But
that's an automatic no.
Yeah, that's an automatic no. But I do think that given what's going on, I do think what you do at the movie theaters, that is that's effective because people are already there for that reason. Right. And now you're just engaging them.
Right.
You know, the guys on the street selling their CDs, they're trying to do the same thing because everybody listens to music.
Right.
It's just a question of, do you listen to the music that they put out there, and do you trust them enough to the point where do you want to buy from them? Because you know, is this guy going to rip me off? Is he going to give me a disc that's a virus or something
blank
like that?
Or whatever? Yeah, any of that. And I think that's the more interesting thing is, if you literally put yourself in the same position and think that when I'm in Artist Alley, it's the exact same platform. It's somebody walking by that I'm going to try to disrupt and be like, hey, let me show you this thing that I did. And when you have that simpatico of hustle, you start to appreciate the things that they're doing. Maybe you don't buy still, but you still appreciate it. But then you start to adopt different things into your repertoire that they do. So like one of the things that I did San Diego last year, I made stickers with QR codes on them, and I slapped them on as many different bathroom toilet paper rolls as possible. And they said things like, are you going to be here for a while? What's your rush? While you're waiting? And if you scan it, it gave you, I think, 2 free digital reads of some of my books, a coupon to buy some geeking material from the website. And it told you a little bit more about what I do. And it was just one of those things of saying, okay, why did this come about? The reason why this came about literally was the year before at San Diego, there were some guys that were trying to sell CDs to people that they were walking around. And I wanted to talk to them. And I talked to them for like a little bit, but we didn't really get into it. But I wanted to say, why are you selling CDs? Let me ask you that, like, literally, why are you selling CDs?
Yeah, it felt weird. The same thing happened to me. And before you go on with it, here's what happened to me in New York Comic Con. As I was leaving on the first day, this dude came up to me and he goes, hey man, can I tell you about my CD? You know, he was, passionate. I'm like, I just got done pitching people all day. And I'm like, you know what? Sure. Give me your pitch. Right. I didn't end up buying from him because I didn't have any money to give him. But, the point is like, I let him pitch me just to kind of see what I could gain. If there was anything.
Smart move. That's a smart move. You learn. Still sharp. Man, but the thing that I wanted to get across to them was you're trying to sell CDs in a environment technologically where CDs are moving out. My computer doesn't have a CD drive.
No, neither does mine. Yeah.
Right. So like, why are you selling CDs as opposed to saying, yo, I've got a card with a QR on it. Here's my SoundCloud. Drop me a donation, whatever. If you like it, throw me $1 on Venmo or what have you. Be different about how you're going to market and promote yourself. And that was the thing that I wanted to tell them. And so instead, I used it, you know, instead of me trying to walk around San Diego with books.
Yeah, giving other people advice. Just take that advice and apply it yourself.
Actually show you this works. And so, yeah, like I had multiple hits on my website from people all over. Not everybody bought anything because I wasn't actually selling a lot of stuff. But, you know, it was one of those things where like I had, you could see it over the course of San Diego Comic-Con weekend. The number of people that visited my page skyrocketed. And it was only because I did this very cheap thing, you know, put up stickers. You know, the only thing I didn't really do, and I would have loved to, is to get one of my female friends to do it in the ladies' room. That's it, you know. But, you know, those are things that you can do that will be engaging, that are different. And
it's not in people's faces.
Exactly.
It's just, yeah, it's no different than seeing a movie poster when, you know, you're out on the street. How the fuck else are we supposed to advertise?
There it is.
Dude, that I'm taking that idea.
Please,
yeah. And every single time I see a sticker of yours, I'll slap mine right next to it.
That's the way to do it, baby. That's the way.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
There's no real competition there.
No, there isn't. There isn't. Honestly, we're doing such different things. And again, I'm learning from you. I learned a tremendous amount from you.
Thank you.
And my friend, I'm sorry, we're out of time now because I got to get to my kids. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for imparting all of us with such great information. This is your final shout out, so I'm going to give you the floor for a minute. Tell us where we can find you one more time. And yeah.
Thank you guys for listening. This is Victor Dandridge, the hardest working man in comics. You can find me on all forms of social media at Vantage Inhouse. That's Twitter, that's Instagram. We've got a Facebook page, facebook.com /Vantage Inhouse. We also have U CRE-8 Comics. That's the letter U. CRE 8 comics.com, where you can find out all the cool products that we've created to help you build your own comic book universe. I want to see you guys create stuff. I want to see you reading books. And if you use my products to do so, that would make me the happiest guy in the entire universe. Thank you. Love, peace, and chicken grease. Much appreciated.
Victor, I look forward to seeing you on the convention front. Do me a favor, stick on backstage for a minute. I'd love to chat with you. Let me just wrap up here.
Thanks
Hang on,
again,
my
man.
brother. Yeah, absolutely. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. This was by far one of the most fun episodes I've done so far. Tomorrow we got another great guest. Tune in the morning and you will see who it is. I will see you all tomorrow. Until then, onward to victory.